All right. Good morning, and happy Wednesday, everyone. Thank you so much for being here with us. Today, I'm joined by George Ferrari, our CEO of the Community Foundation of Tompkins County. You all are our friends, our partners, culture creators, wonderful folks that I've worked with over the course of the year. I'm so excited to be here this morning. I'd like to acknowledge and thank Community Foundation staff. I'm not sure if anyone else is on. But thanks for everyone who supported me in my role as Chief Inclusion and Community Engagement Officer. I'd also like to acknowledge each and every single one of you for committing this time and this energy to building and rebuilding and supporting our community. You are all, and I say this over and over again, you are all what makes Tompkins County so special and so unique. So we are going to cover a lot today. I'm going to be doing a lot of talking, but please feel free to interrupt if there's something that you don't understand or you need clarity, or you can write your questions in the chat. I'll be monitoring the chat. Hopefully George will be helping out with that. And it's okay if you missed something. We're going to be recording this, like I said, and it's going to be on our website later on today. Just some housekeeping things. Please keep yourselves on mute if you do not have a question and when you're not speaking. Be respectful and kind, of course, of everyone. There's no judgment here, and there's no such thing as a silly question. All questions are welcomed. Or if you just have the questions, just, like I said, feel free to interrupt me or just write them in the chat. So we're going to talk about some really basic information. We're going to go over some grant guidelines, frequently asked questions, and then we're going to dive into this spectacular grants platform that we have. So let's get right to it. All right. So here I am. I am the daughter of two Haitian immigrants who moved to Rockland County, New York, in search of a better life for their family. I grew up in Rockland County with three older sisters. I graduated from the Brooks School, Cornell University, with a master's in public administration in 2019. And I began my love affair with this wonderful community that is near and dear to my heart while at Cornell. And I was doing a lot of work with students who experience food insecurity. And I just kind of immersed myself in experiences that had to do with food insecurity, education, community building, and so forth. And my journey began here at the Community Foundation, June of last year. Some of you have been with me from the very beginning and followed me all the way through. And I love to say that my job begins and ends with people. And it involves asking those really tough questions and having crucial conversations as it relates to diversity, equity, and inclusion. So I wear three hats. 3 fingers. I put 2 fingers up at first. So 3 hats. I am the DEI officer, and I'm also the grants manager and also the community outreach worker. So I do 3 very different things that intersect really well, and I love, love, love what I do. So the mission of here at the Community Foundation is we bring people and resources together to build a more equitable Tompkins County by inspiring diverse philanthropy, catalyzing collaborations, and championing inclusion and justice. Those three things. And some key values that drive the work that we do here at the foundation are engagement, integrity, racial equity, relationships, and social justice. The one thing that we value most is being community driven, and all of these values are at the center of what we do every single day. So this slide here is a bit dated. I thought I updated and put a new one, but the information here is still relevant. It shows the 2020 metrics that summarizes our grants over a 4-year period, so 2018 to 2021. Our social justice strategies here, as you can see, are divided into 4 categories. Those categories are racial justice, rural services, advocacy, and resource equity. And you'll see that nearly 80% of all of our grant making is social justice related, with resource equity being the largest portion. George, off the top of your head, is it still about 80% now, or has it gone up or gone down, or is it relevant?
Up a little bit. I think it's 82 or 83. You know, it always ebbs and flows, but it stays high.
Yeah. All right. So our grant cycles, there are 3 main grant cycles. We have our library grant cycle, which is between February and March.
Right.
And that is the library grant cycle. And we service 33 libraries, big and small. So that's our Finger Lakes library system. And that's a closed grant cycle. So it's not like organizations, unless if you're part of the Finger Lakes library system, you can apply.
However, I would say to you, so the eligible groups for that, this came from a request that we received 10 or 11 years ago now. We've been doing the cycle. The eligible grantees are defined as the 33 public libraries in the Finger Lakes library system: Tompkins, Tioga, Cortland, Seneca, and Cayuga counties. And it's for youth and encouraging young people to read. Now, you might want to engage with one of the libraries that is eligible and pitch an idea that you want to work with together. So you may not be the applicant, but you may be a collaborator, because we always like events in collaboration.
Always. Thank you, George. And then, of course, we have our regular grant cycles, our spring grant cycle, and then we have our fall grant cycle, which we are now entering. We completed the spring grant cycle in April, so that cycle is March to April. Fall grant cycle is September through October. And if for some reason you have out of cycle needs, we do accept out of cycle needs, but of course, if they are emergency related, there are ways for us to match your needs with our donor advised funds or special interest funds, and that's only in emergency situations. Okay, if you have received a grant last year, 2022, fall 2022, you had a grant report that is due August 11th. If you have not filled out that grant report or submitted that grant report, we do understand that things happen. There are shifts in organizations. I've had people email me and say, well, this person didn't leave this information for me and so forth. We completely get it. So if you're not sure, or if you need an extension, or if you have a question, please reach out to me. So we can work this through, because you cannot apply. You are not eligible to apply for this grant cycle if you have not submitted your fall 2022 grant report.
Remember correctly, that the group of folks who received a 2022 grant from us, you applied for the grant using something called Community Force. We have since left Community Force and have something new called GLM. So your report will be on the new platform, right?
Correct. Yes. I sent an email to all of the organizations that has received funding last year with instructions to how to get onto the new platform. So for whatever reason, if you're on this call or watching the video and you have received funding and you did not get that email from me and need access, please reach out to me. Let's see. So our fall grant cycle opens today. Yay. It's actually active right now. Applications are due October 11th. Grants range from $500 to $10,000. Of course, that's depending on what your need is and what we have available in our what's available for funding. Grant reports are due for this round next year, 2024, August 7th. We at the Community Foundation believe very strongly in trust-based philanthropy. And at the center of that practice is grant making without restrictions, so unrestricted funds. Organizations, all of you community leaders have appreciated our recent shift to granting unrestricted dollars, and that's a trend that is best practice in this grant making field. This means that funds are flexible. There's no more program and program specific money, and it allows you to really shift, pivot, and be flexible when you need to. All right. So I'm really proud of how far our grant review process has evolved, I guess. It's a well thought out, intentional process that begins with our recruiting. Grant applications are reviewed by, not just us. We don't sit around at a table and decide, well, hey, we like this person, or, I'm friends with this person, or whatever it may be. It's your community members, it's your friends, it's your neighbors, it's your employees that assess your application based on its merit through a variety of tools. Some things that our review team members look at are, whether or not organizations are effectively meeting goals. Are they communicating well with their staff or the population that they serve? What are you learning? Are you documenting what you're learning? How are you pivoting? Is there clear evidence of collaboration? We're looking for collaboration. We're not just looking for a list of people you say you collaborate with, but how you collaborate and so forth. We'll get further into the questions like later on. This is our beautiful, colorful 2022 spring grant review cycle team. Again, as I said, we don't sit around the table and make these decisions. We exercise what we call a shared decision model. That's where we invite your peers, colleagues, and everyone that I mentioned earlier to our decision-making process. We invite them into this process, and it's constantly changing. This group in particular is constantly changing, and it's never the same team reviewing these applications cycle after cycle. At the end of this presentation, I'm going to put not the QR code, but the link to apply as a volunteer review team member. So the application is now open. It's open until, I believe, September 20th is when it's open until, so you can, and I encourage you to apply to be part of our review teams. So in addition to what we fundraise for and what's available for our grant cycles, we do something called matchmaking, where we look for alignment based on your request or areas ranging from, specific areas ranging from aging to environmental to racial equity. And we look at the alignment of those particular priority areas with our special interests. Our special interest funds, as well as donor advised funds. All right. All right, application questions. So we ask for, of course, your basic information, your mission. We ask for an alignment of your output, so what you're actually doing and how it aligns with your mission. We ask for storytelling, so we want to hear, your very best story, impactful story. We want to know about the programs that you provide. We want to know about your goals, how you're goal setting, how you're evaluating your goals. We want to know about who you collaborate with. Are you actively sharing and planning with organizations that are doing the same work that you're doing? So what I'll do is I am going to copy the link to our questions. And then I'm going to put that in the chat. And that way you have the full question list ahead of time. If you need to plan, with your team or with whomever is doing the grant with you, this allows you to plan effectively. All right, so I added that link to the chat. So before we move forward, do I have any questions? Any questions for
You
for
know,
right
two
now.
check, Lori. One is if
Yep.
you do apply and are awarded a grant, when might you accept the actual funds? Typically, we grant these out in checks sent at the end of November, beginning of December. So you certainly have them before the end of this calendar year in that time frame. And then you had mentioned the application is open and people wanted to know where they could find the link for the application right now.
Yep, that is coming. That's gonna come up in another slide or two. So I'll put that link up in just a second.
Great. And when are applicants typically notified of decisions? Probably in the middle of November is when we're.
Yeah.
about
Mid-November, yep.
Likely before Thanksgiving, about a week before Thanksgiving.
All right,
Great questions. I'll keep monitoring the chat.
perfect, thank you. So on the grant application, you'll see a statement that we made confirming our commitment to DEI. I'm just going to read that really quickly. At the Community Foundation of Tompkins County, we believe that we could do more to promote and embrace DEI, as well as support you to advance DEI principles at your organization. We are asking you to share with us some basic demographics about your staff and board, such as race, ethnicity, gender, sexual orientation, geography, and disability status. We believe that your answers will help us understand whether the organizations we fund are diverse and inclusive relative to their context, if our grants help to decrease disparities and/or advance equity, and which demographics and groups need more support. Implicit biases are rooted in traditional grant-making practice, so we are being intentional as we collect more DEI-related grant-making data to address these issues. Some questions may be uncomfortable. We understand that, and they may be hard to answer, but is essential if organizations are going to become more diverse, equitable, and inclusive. And we seek to do this in a way that feels constructive. So we are not, we're not pointing any fingers. We're not trying to make anyone feel bad, and makes clear that we are here to provide support where we can. So here are some, demographic related questions. We ask if you capture demographic data of the population you serve. We realize that this may be an odd question for, maybe, environmental related organizations or, farm related organizations. But to the best of your ability, and we realize that it may be difficult for some people to answer that question based on what they do. And our review teams are trained on this as well. So here are more specific DEI related questions. As I said, we're being more intentional as we collect this data. And we've kind of realigned our DEI questions. They've been shifting back and forth, over the past 2 cycles. And we've also decreased the bearing on overall scores, really acknowledging and understanding that everybody is kind of on their own path. So every organization is on their own path as it relates to DEI. Some are just starting out, and others have full-on strategic plans, and others have full-on, DEI officers and people actually doing the work. It's okay. We totally understand. These questions are really meant to get you to start thinking about the importance of doing this work and how it can improve your overall impact. So again, if your organization is new to this, there is an opportunity at the end of the DEI section to, provide extra information. Like, if you're new to this and, you have created a DEI committee or, subcommittee or so forth, just give us all the information that you can. All right. All right, so some new changes. The last grant cycle we had, we removed a huge barrier for some organizations, for the smaller grassroots organizations, we got rid of the financial Excel spreadsheet. That was a huge barrier for some people. There was a very detailed line by line, forecasted budget, current budget, previous budget. And it was just a lot to look at. Very, very intimidating. So we listened to you as we got information and data from you, as we evaluated our process. And one of the main things was this financial spreadsheet has got to go. So that's what we did. So it's easy enough. We want to know what your revenues are, what your expenses are, and where your income is coming from. So are you getting income from other foundations, or other agencies or organizations? That's really what we'd like to know. Let's see. We've added the opportunity to meet with me one-on-one to collaborate and review your application. So it's kind of a two-step process depending on where you are. I'll meet with you like the first time to, give you information, gather information from you, talk about what should go in your answers. And then the second time around is more of a critique. So we'll look at your full answers, and then, I'll tweak it a little bit and give you some feedback, and that way you can go back and, make the necessary changes. I did some data analysis in the last cycle, and those organizations that have met with me one-on-one, 80% of those organizations were fully funded, and 20% of those organizations were partially funded, and there were no organizations that didn't get funding at all. So that alone tells you that it's worthwhile to really set up a meeting with me. So I'm going to put in the chat the link for Calendly, which is where, oops, sorry, I direct messaged someone by accident. So there goes the link to set up a meeting with me, a one-on-one meeting. And new this time, so this cycle is coffee tea time with me on Tuesdays. So every Tuesday from 12:30 to 1:30, I'll be at Dunkin' Donuts. Well, it's not Dunkin' Donuts anymore. It's just Dunkin'. Over on South Middle Street. I'll be there every Tuesday up until the grant cycle ends on October 11th. So from 12:30 to 1:30, Tuesdays at Dunkin', I'll be there. You can just pop in, no reservation required, no RSVP. You don't even need to email me to tell me, because I'll be there. Just bring whatever you have. We could talk about grants or not, but I'll be there. And if you want to meet me there, that's fantastic. We do have a new, as of last cycle, a new online portal. So we have switched over from what most of you are familiar with, which is Community Force, from Community Force to a platform called Foundant, and Foundant GLM, which is our grant lifecycle manager. So we'll go over that in a little bit as well. And then new grant guidelines. So we have kind of created a handbook, like a little packet for you to access, that gives you frequently asked questions, links to the application, helpful tips and tricks, all kinds of great information in these grant guidelines. And then also what we've done is we've streamlined reporting. I don't know whomever had a chance to, fill out and submit their grant reports. It's literally like 2 or 3 questions or something like that. But we give you the opportunity to submit pictures. We want to see pictures. We want to see your annual report. We want to see any information that you can share with us, so that we can kind of brag about what it is that you do, because we're very proud of what it is that you do. I am going to, let's see.
Or we do have one question about the financial information. Are you
Oh,
looking
yes,
for
please.
2023 financial figures or projected 2024 figures? And you might not all be in the same fiscal year either.
I'm sorry, say that again. I missed it.
Sure. Are you looking for 2023 financial figures or projected 2024 figures? And we understand you may not all be on the same fiscal year.
So one of the questions are, what is your current fiscal year? So it would be for not projected, for your current. So for right now, the current fiscal year. All right, so right now I am going to put the link in the chat, the link to the application, and then I'm gonna walk through. Hold on, let's see. There's that. All right, do we have any other questions before I continue?
There's a question about I can't say that word, that's too many L's.
Calendly.
Calendly. Are we selecting the collaborative consultation
Yes.
option? And do you have any times before 3 p.m.?
If you need a time outside of what's available, please, you can email me and we can make that work. So I will add my email to this chat. There is my email. Okay, do we have any other questions before I move on? Okay. So right now, I am going to try to get onto this link here. Okay, can everybody see our link, the platform here?
I think we're good.
Okay. So first, we are collaborating with the United Way of Tompkins County and also Legacy Foundation to create this common platform for applications. So when you sign in, you'll see that Legacy has an active application now, so you'll see that as well, but just don't get confused with that. So this message here is a little, a welcome. It kind of tells you if you're a new user, you'll create a new account. That's very, very important. So again, this is a new platform. So if the last time you applied and you've applied on Community Force, you will need to create a new account. So to create a new account, you'll go to this link here, create a new account. It'll ask you so for basic information, organization, email, etc., and then you'll create a password. If you're unsure, please email us. Email Madeline at admin@cftompkins.org. Also here, we have provided some helpful tutorials for how to access the site and create an account, how to apply for funding, your dashboard, how to make sense of your dashboard. And then there's a link here for review team members. And also important to us, if you are neurodivergent, visually impaired, or have any other accessibility issues, please reach out to me. And my email address, gcoicou@cftompkins.org. So right now what I'm going to do is log on. And this is what you'll see when you first log on. So this is your profile. It'll have your applicant information, the organization that you are with. And if you actively have a sign-in with us, here's where your active requests will be. Here's where your historical requests will be. So you'll have things like grant agreements. If you ever remember signing grant agreements with us, they will all be here. But to access the application, you'll come up to where it says apply. And then, as I said, Legacy they have their fall grant cycle happening right now, and that closes on September 15th. So if you owe us a grant report, here is also where you'll find our grant report. You'll just go ahead and click apply and answer those grant report questions. But our grant cycle, you'll follow all the way down to the bottom. And here's where it is. So you have our deadline, tells you our deadline, which is October 11th. Grants ranging from 500 to 10,000. And here is where I include links to our grant guidelines. So I'll copy this link address and then I will actually add that in the chat. So there are our guidelines. You can view the Q&A session, Q&A. I can't speak today, George. What's going on? Our Q&A session. After today, we're going to upload today's session here. So, but here you'll still find one from, I think it was either the fall or the spring. I can't remember which one is linked here. You can also download application questions. So the link that I provided in the chat, this is the same link to our questions. And then also you're able to make a one-on-one appointment with me here at this link. So these 4 links are very, very important. We have your grant guidelines, Q&A, application questions, and make an appointment with me for support. And then we have a message for you here. And then this link here tells you a little bit about trust-based philanthropy, as I mentioned earlier today. And as I said, you know, unrestricted funding is one of the main practices of what we consider trust-based philanthropy to be. So once you get here, you've looked at all of these links and you go into apply. So if you click on apply, the application will come up. So here, the title of your request. So that would be something like, you know, Ithaca Health Alliance $10,000 request for staff support, or Finger Lakes reuse support for Project X, or whatever it might be. And just really quick, I'm just going to go through, you know, board adopted mission. Here, in your own words, we want to know what your organization actually does. And we ask this question because sometimes whomever is applying, sometimes they don't understand what the mission is. And then you can see that in the way that they answer the question. So really try, I guess, not humanize, but just put it in layman's terms, what you guys do for the community. We ask you if you have submitted your grant report, you know, if you received funding in the fall. This question is related to last year's grant report. We ask, you know, full-time or half-time, you know, employees. And then we ask you if you are a nonprofit organization. So this is really important. What I saw happening in the past is organizations that were fiscally sponsored were putting down that they are nonprofit organizations and then putting the fiscally sponsored organizations' information as their own information. You can't do that. So if you are a fiscally sponsored organization, we want to know all about your organization first and what you'll do for the EIN number. Oh, well, I'm not as an organization, so it wouldn't be here. But when you are creating your profile and you are adding your organization, as the EIN number, it will be all zeros. So I'll say it again. If you are a fiscally sponsored organization, so you are not a 501c3, you will need to put as your EIN number 00 dash and then 7 zeros afterwards. Do not put the EIN of your fiscal sponsor. You will put 00 dash and then 7 zeros. Here is where you will put your fiscally sponsored organization's information. So once you hit, we are a fiscally sponsored organization, all of this great stuff will pop up here. So this is where we want to know the name of your fiscal sponsor, what's their EIN number, etc. And then this is the request section. We want to know, of course, how much you're requesting. And as I said previously, we are really leaning towards trust-based philanthropy. And that means not that we're not interested in your projects, but we are funding you, the organization, and you have the liberty to do what you need to do, because we feel as the organization, you know what the needs are. However, I've gotten a lot of emails saying, wait, you don't want to know what we're doing with this money? It's not a required answer. It's not required. However, this is the place where you can tell us what it is that you're doing. As it says, it's not a requirement, but if you'd like us to let us know what it will be used for, you can tell us the information here. We want to know what locations that you serve. And then here is where I talked a little bit about matching your funds with our special interest funds and our donor advised funds. We want to know if, for the Women's Opportunity Center, for example, like their primary area would be women. We also want to know about the populations you serve. Do you primarily serve mostly men? Do you serve mostly elderly? And then here is where you can tell us your story. We want to know how you've been impactful. We want these stories to be, we want them to be clear. We want them to be moving. We want them to be compelling. And, just a tip would be for you to get a direct quote from, whomever you're telling the story about, how they've been impacted by your services. We want to know about your goals for next year and how you're evaluating your goals. In the guidelines, you'll see not really a story, but I'm showing you, for example, a question might be, what is your goal over the next 6 months? And then somebody's answer would be, my car is a Ford Mustang. I didn't ask you about your Ford Mustang. I asked you about what your goal is. So that would be a score of a 0 if a review team member was scoring your application. And then let's say you went in, I have a goal of, going to medical school next year, and I plan on applying in December. Well, that's great. But what else? I have a goal of going to medical school in 6 months, and I've reached out to the school, and this is what my financial aid package is. Okay, but what else? I have a goal of going to school, and then, and so forth. And so it just keeps going. So I think just including being concise, but then being clear and making sure that the answer, the question is actually answered in its entirety. We want to know how you're collaborating with organizations. We don't just want a list. We want to know what you've done with them. So let's say that you've partnered with, I like picking on Finger Lakes Reuse for whatever it is. So you'll write them down and then say, we did this program for this amount of weeks, every Saturday at 2 p.m. or whatever it is. So here's where you'll write exactly what you did, programs that you did, how you've collaborated, etc. And this is where you will put your financial information. So budgeted revenue, budgeted expenses, dates of your current fiscal year, and then what other sources of revenue are you getting? Please be specific. And then you also have an opportunity to tell us whatever you'd like about your budget. It could be, you only have your budget for last year or whatever reason, your accountant is away for what, you'd be surprised at the things that I've seen. So this is an opportunity for you to give us additional comments regarding the information that you put in up here. And then here is our DEI statement. As I talked about, we want to know what best describes the race of your organization CEO. So we have all of these that you can choose from. We want to know what best describes the race of your board president or chair. We realize that some organizations may not have a CEO or executive director or even a board president. So you'll just pick other for those instances. And here's the remaining of the remainder. I can't speak today. That means I need a break. Are there any questions?
There is one question in chat that I got
Yeah.
usually. So just to be clear about this new platform that includes 3 different funders on it. When someone signs on, and let's say they've never gotten a grant from us, but they did from Legacy, they're not going to see the Legacy grant history when they sign on to our portion of the portal, or will they? And we may not know the answer to this. We may have to get back to you because this is relatively new. It's not a common application, but it's a single portal.
Oh, that's a great question.
Yeah, that's the best question yet today.
Yeah, I think so. We'll have to. Who asked that question? We'll have to
Felix.
get back to that person.
Felix from WRFI Community Radio.
Oh, hey. Oh, that's my friend.
Hi, Gloria.
How's it going? So that's it. That's a really great question. And again, so we are learning as we go with this portal, and having 2 other agencies on our portal just only complicates things. But from what I know and understand about how the portal works, as a profile, everything that you have applied for will be on your profile. So you should be, and then don't quote me, Felix, I'll get back to you, but you should be able to see everything that you've applied for on Foundant, so on the whole portal. So you should be able to see Legacy, you should be able to see United Way, but we're going to get back to you.
Let me say 2 things about that.
Yes.
One is our goal is to simplify the experience for you,
Right.
not to make it more complicated.
Right.
And the idea that if we're on the same, and United Way and Legacy have used this before us, we adopted it, and United Way came to us and said, hey, can we do this all together? We thought, what a great idea. Let's do that all together on the single point of entry platform. But
Right.
for those that are United Way or Legacy grantees, you'll be familiar with this platform. The second thing I would mention to you, this is again for, I believe this is only going to show you applications that you've made through a grant cycle. Many of you know that you can get grants from donor advised funds at the initiative of the donor advisor. Those will not show because they did not come to us through a competitive grant cycle. Hopefully it doesn't confuse you again.
Right. But if you have signed grant agreements, etc., all of those things will be on your profile.
Right.
Yeah, as historical information, it will be. Yeah. Okay, and then here's the remaining DEI questions. And then we want to know if you attended or even viewed this Q&A. And then we want to know how you're affiliated. So are you a volunteer, review team member, etc., or other? And then if you have any marketing material or a video that you want to send or anything additional, here's an opportunity to upload. If you have anything larger, then of course you can send that to me directly at gcoicou@cftompkins.org. And here is your signature. So by typing your name, you're signing the grant agreement and you're acknowledging that everything on the application is true and valid. So I have to say that whomever is applying, so whomever filled out all the information, this is where they sign the application. There's a second signature that is required, and that signature is either by the executive director or the fiscal sponsor. So if you are the executive director and you're filling it out, you'll fill it out twice. So you'll sign your name up here and then you'll sign your name down there. But if you are not the executive director or the fiscal sponsor, you cannot sign this line. So the way to get your executive director or fiscal sponsor to sign it is you'll come back up, and the directions are right here, but you'll come back up to the top of the application and then you'll go to collaborate. And then you'll add the address whomever you want to collaborate with. So I'm going to collaborate with George. CFTompkins.org. And then I'm going to hit Can Submit. So once you've once you've signed, and then you'll go in, you'll come up here to collaborate, you'll add the email address, and then you'll hit Can Submit, and then in that email, they'll get specific instructions on how to access this application. And then maybe you'll give like a specific message like, you know, I filled this out, please sign and submit. And then you'll just hit invite. And then that information will go directly to the email that you provided. So that person will be able to come in, they'll review your application, look at all your answers, everything's good to go. They'll come all the way down, they'll sign the application, and then they will submit. So we will know on our end, on the administrator end, if you have signed or if the executive director has signed. So there's been times where, you know, both have been signed by the applicant. We will not accept the application if it is not signed by the executive director or the fiscal sponsor. All right, so then you'll go in and then you'll hit submit, and then you'd be good to go. So I'm going to, let's see here. All right, so I am going to now go to, so that's the end of the application process. Any questions with that? I know we're running close on time here. I'm just going to show you the grant guidelines really quick and then open it up for some questions. Do we have any other questions, George, in the chat?
I don't see anything in the chat.
All right. All right, so here are our fall 2023 guidelines. Let you know what our mission is. We have useful information, the grant range, some deadlines here, when you'll be funded, when the final report is due. My apologies, I said August 7th. Nope, it's August 14th, the following week. Our grant making philosophy here. This tells you about our donor advised funds and field of interest funds that I talked about earlier. And like I said, I'm just going to breeze through this because I put the links in the chat, and I also have the links up on the application portal. So here are some important tips for a strong application. So please read these. And then here is how, what review teams will focus on. So we're going to make sure that you completed all the guidelines. We're going to make sure those are met. We're going to look for all of these different bullet points. And then some useful information here. Here are the guidelines. Application procedures. So embedded in this PDF in the grant guidelines is the link to get to the application portal. It tells you how to create a new account if you're creating a new account. If you need more information or need help, my email address is here. And this little quote that says that we honor and acknowledge and appreciate what you all do every day. I make that very apparent and very evident every time I speak to any one of you. We see you, we feel you, we're here to support you in any way that we can. We want to see you get funded. We don't want to send out that email that said we cannot provide any funding because of so and so and so. So we want to see you be successful. That is why we have included all of these different ways for you to be successful. That's meeting with me, meeting me for coffee, reading the grant guidelines, reviewing the Q&A, all of those things. As I said, there's frequently asked questions down here at the bottom. If I applied and was funded in a previous cycle, am I eligible? So these are all questions that I see kind of cycle to cycle with answers to those questions. So of course you all can read that on your own time. And that is, hold on, let me get out of here.
Was Gloria, we do have an indication, and we could check
Yeah.
this link later, that the link to the grant guidelines you put in the chat is broken. It's not working. So broken links happen every so often, and it's really helpful.
The link to the grant guidelines. Okay, let's check it out. Let's see here.
While
Let-
Gloria's checking it out, I'm gonna say two additional things. I think Gloria's also gonna put the actual link on our Grant Cycles website. You have it already from being in this. And just to recall that our grant making in 2023 is based upon our market performance in the stock market in 2022. And many of you will recall that the market did not perform well last year, and we had some substantial losses that we're slowly recovering from. So that means that we have less money this year than we have had in previous years to respond to your requests. I just wanted to kind of normalize that although you're going to be doing great applications, we're not always able to fund every application that we would like to fund. And that's particularly the case in the fall grant cycle for this year. We anticipate in 2024 we'll have recovered some of those losses, but our portfolio was down about 15%, which is pretty typical for most people. If you have an IRA or your own investments, you recognize and know that. So I just wanted to kind of set expectations with that reality about what financial resources are available.
All right, so I've added that new link to the chat. Please let me know if that works. I don't know why that other one was broken.
And just to reiterate, our deadline for this application is 5 p.m. on October 11th.
Did that link? It works. Yay, we have success. Perfect.
Links just want more attention than we give them.
Yes, so that means that I'm gonna have to go in and then change the link to what is on our website, literally everywhere. So thanks for catching that, whomever caught it. But that kind of, that was a lot of talking and a lot of information. I get it. It probably won't even make sense to, the person watching on the other end as they're watching the recording, but please, I am available. I'm available to help this all make sense, to answer questions, to connect, to collaborate, to help you the best way that we know how. Again, I will add my email in the chat just in case anyone missed it. But do we have any additional additional information, but do we have additional questions?
There's one in the chat. I don't know if my organization has a fiscal sponsor. We're a volunteer organization sponsored by the Unitarian Church, but we raise our own funds. So the Community Foundation can only grant to 4 types of organizations: a 501c3, and that's not any not-for-profit, it's a particular kind of not-for-profit, right? So we're not doing to C4s or C6s, or we don't grant to political action campaigns or chambers of commerce or membership organizations. 501c3, school district, a municipality, or a faith community. If you're a group and you're not one of those, you're able to, by mutual agreement with your group and a fiscal sponsor, seek fiscal sponsorship from one of those organizations. They take on the responsibility for receiving the grant, reporting on the grant, and overseeing the distribution of those monies. Sometimes those fiscal sponsors also require a fee for that service. That's perfectly allowable. Sometimes they don't require that fee, but it should be clear, and I would argue in a written agreement between your group and the fiscal sponsor, what the responsibilities are and what the particular roles are. So if you're an unincorporated group of good people doing great things in the community, you probably need a fiscal sponsor. If you're a faith community or an element of a faith community, you don't need a fiscal sponsor, as long as that faith community identifies you as such. Hopefully that answers your question, Sue.
Good. Perfect. Okay, do we have any other questions? Kathleen, what you got for me? Kathleen, do you have a question? I'm putting you on the spot.
I don't know if you're talking to me.
Yes, Kathleen, I'm
Oh.
talking to you.
I know that I'm going to get confused as I fill out the application
Yeah.
between the which questions are referring to our fiscal sponsor and which are referring to our organization. So
So
that's
the
that's
only, that's a great question. So the only answers that we want related to fiscal sponsor, your fiscal sponsor, is the fiscal sponsor section. So it's literally only, their name, their EIN, website, executive director email. So
Okay.
everything else, should kind of be your organization. And Kathleen, I know it's very specific with your organization, so I'm going to work, you and I are going to work closely together. Okay, so not every organization is built the same, and we
Yeah.
get it. So I'm going to work with you specifically to get you across the finish line. I promise.
Okay. Then I'll save my other little question for then.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Dan, do you have a question for me?
I think you answered mine well yesterday on that call, so I'm good for now. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. Melissa, anything from you, Melissa?
Yeah, the organization that I'm applying with already receives funds from you on a regular basis. And I want to make sure that if I'm submitting an additional application, that it wouldn't be considered in lieu of the applications that they already submit and rely on with you. I don't know if I'm making
So
sense.
the answer is, the answer can change, but is this your fiscally sponsored?
So I'm new to working with Open Doors English, and Open Doors English, uses grants from y'all for their basic operating expenses. And what I want to do is sort of an add-on program that is aside from that.
But it's still part of Open Doors English.
Yes.
Okay, so we grant to the organization. So the organization is Open Doors English. So
Right.
Open Doors English can do, what can work, whatever projects or programs Open Doors English has,
Right.
they apply for that.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
You can't, so if you apply, you'll be applying as Open Doors English, not that specific branch. Like you can, or the specific project, you can tell us about that project, of course, but the money will go to Open Doors English. And if there's several different projects happening, we can grant the most of $10,000 to one specific organization, regardless of how many little projects are within that organization. It can total up to $10,000.
And let me
Okay.
put a finer point on it for you, Melissa, because I know Open Doors English, I know we often will have donor advisors on their own initiative make a grant to you. So we're talking now only about competitive grants that you apply for through a grant cycle.
Yes.
It will not in any way detract or subtract or dissuade those donor advisors from giving you support on their own initiative from a donor advised fund.
Right.
Because community foundation has lots of component parts, it gets a little complicated, but we don't punish success, and we understand that most organizations don't have anywhere near the resources you need. So you want to make sure that we're supporting organizations like yours that are doing good work, like all of yours that are doing good work. I will say that if you receive some money in the spring grant cycle, then we have a slight preference bias toward granting to new and different organizations in the fall grant cycle. That's not firm and definitive, it's a slight tilt. And you can imagine, given my earlier comments about the availability of funds being lower this year, it might be a little bit of stronger tilt this year. But it will not affect your support from other resources in a non-competitive grant making way from the community foundation. Hopefully that answers that part of the question.
Thanks. Yeah.
Perfect. Okay. Well, all right, we are 2 minutes over. I apologize for that. So if you need to hop off, that's perfectly fine with us, but we'd like to thank you for spending this afternoon with us and taking the time out of your day. Have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your day. Enjoy this hot, hot, hot weather. Enjoy it while it's still around. And if you have any questions, please, please, please email me, gcoicou@cftompkins.org. And I look forward to reading all of your applications and seeing all of your faces. Take care, everyone. Have a
Bye-bye.
great day.